This lab, we will introduce the OSPF router summarization. Okay, and for the first is the introduction. The background is the customer's line is partially depicted in the topology figure. So this is our topology, right? And here the topology, we have the area 0 and area 1 and the area 2. We have 3 OSPF areas. Okay, and for this topology, the router R1 has many users address range that, and we have the loopback 10, loopback 0, 1, 2, 3, this loopback IP address. And we distributed into OSPF creates the numbers OIA routes in the backbone area. Additionally, R4 device has many external routes that because the R5 has this loopback IP address will redistribute into the OSPF process. Okay, and the increase the number of external routes in the backbone area, but we know the backbone area has all of the routing entries, right? So the network administrator intends to implement OSPF route summarization to minimize the number of router entry in the backbone area. So it means the backbone area, the number, we have to do the summarization. Okay. The purpose first is to mask how to configure the route summarization across the OSPF domain. And before, we have to do the basic configuration, do the OSPF configuration, and then do the summarization. Okay. And the second is to master how to configure route summarization outside of the OSPF domain. So this is our two purpose. Okay, to this topology, and we see the requirements. For the interconnection address between two devices, like the R1 and R2, we use the IP address 12.0.0. And the segment is 24. And for R1, we use 1. And for R2, we use 2, right? And the IP address configuration is same between R2 and R3, R3 and R4, and R4 and R5. So here, for example, we use the R3 and R4. Interconnection address is 13.4.0.03, and another is 34.0.0.4. Okay. And the management address for every router is 32, so which is assigned to loopback 10 interface, such as the loopback 10 for R1 is a 1.1.1. Okay, for R2 is a 2.2.2, and every router is the same format. Okay, and the three requirements is R5. R5 has 4 loopback interface address. So here we can see the R5 has loopback 1, loopback 2, loopback 3, loopback 0, and the segment is 172.16.0123 and .1. Okay, this is the loopback IP address for R5. And the R1 also has 4 loopback interface address. It's a loopback 0, loopback 1, loopback 2, and loopback 3. And the IP address information is 116.2 and 168.0.1. Okay, so this is the loopback IP address information. Actually, this loopback IP address will redistribute into the OSPF process. Okay, and to do the summarization. And the 4 requirements is to summarize the 192.168.0.1 and 192.168.1.1. and 192.168.2.1 and 192.168.3.1. So for this segment, we have to using the largest subnet mask possible. Okay, so for the 172.16.0.1, and for this segment, we also have to using the largest subnet mask possible. Okay, so this is a requirement for summarization. And now we'll focus on the configuration plane. First is complete the IP address configuration, including the device interconnection address, such as the physical IP address and device management address. So the device management address is for the root ID, right? And the static routing. Okay, so the static routing is from the loopback 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0. Okay, and the second plane is complete the basic OSPF configuration, including interconnection and loopback interface address advertisement and redistribute static route into OSPF process on R4. So we will do the redistribute static routes on R4 device into the OSPF process. So next is complete the inter-domain routing summarization on the ADR route is R2 device. Okay, is R2 device. And next, complete the out-of-domain route summarization on ASBR is the R4. So the R4 actually connect with OSPF process and then connect with the static routing entries. So the R4 actually is the ASBR device for OSPF area. So next we will focus on the procedure. First we have to do the IP address configuration and for every device. Okay, and after this we will create the OSPF process, and then we will create the static routing on the device R1 and R5. And after this, we will do the redistribute to the OSPF process. Okay, and when we finish this configuration, the last step is summarization. So this is our procedure. Okay, and now we will use our environment lab to show how to do this lab. So we have finished the topology here, and now we will begin every device here. So first we go to the R1 device. And here first we have to create the loopback interface. So first we create the loopback interface loopback 10. So for this interface actually is management, right? It's a management interface. So IP address is the 111 and segment is 32. And after this, we will create the 0, 1, 2, 3. This IP address actually, we will configure the network is 192.168.0.1 or 1, 1 or 2, 1 or 3, 1 for this 4 address for 4 loopback interface. Okay, first is the loopback 0. And the IP address is 192.168.1.0.1. The net mask is 24. Actually, you also can use this way. It's the same. Okay. And the next interface is loopback 1. And then configure the IP address. Next is the loopback 2. The IP address is 192.168.2.1. So after this, we will configure the loopback 3 and then the IP address. Okay, after this, we have finished all the logical interface configuration. Okay, and now we will configure the physical IP address. So it's the gigabit 0, right? And we go to the gigabit 0, and the IP address is 12.0.0.1 and 24. Okay, after this, we have finished all the IP address configuration on R1. For recognizing this device easily, we can modify the host name and then store the configuration. And after this, we can show IP interface brief to check the results of our configuration. And here we can see the loopback IP address. Of course, we can see the physical IP address. So it's correct. After this, we go to the R2 device. And modify the host name. Then create the loopback IP address with loopback 10. The IP address is 2.2.2.32. Okay, and then we will configure the physical IP address. It's a gigabit 0 and gigabit 1. Sure 002 and the gigabit 1. The IP address is 23.002. So the IP address configuration we have finished on R2 device and WR. And show IP interface brief to check the results. Okay. And then go to the R3. First, create the loopback IP address, interface loopback 10, and the IP address is 3.3.3 and 32. Okay, and then to set the IP address for gigabit 1 and gigabit 0. So the interface gigabit 1 and the IP address is 23.0.0.3. And then go to the gigabit 0. The IP address is 34 and 00.4 and 24. So this is the IP address configuration, and we modify the host name R3, okay, and the WR, and show IP interface brief to see the configuration results. Okay, after we finish the R3, we go to the R4. And here we can see actually the IP address is wrong, right? So we can modify it. So it's a good habit for you and to show IP interface brief and to see the results of our configuration. And now we can see the IP address for gigabit 0, right? For gigabit 0 is wrong, right? Okay, so we can find this error easily. Interface gigabit 0, okay, and then modify the IP address to 33.0.0.3, okay. So actually it's a good habit for you. And then WR. So go to the R4 device. And then first we have to create the loopback IP address and set the IP address for the 32. And then to configure the physical IP address. So first is the gigabit 0. The IP address is 33, 34.0.0.4 and 24. And for another gigabit 1, this interface connect with R5. So we know this interface actually is not belongs to the OSPF, right? Okay, and the interface gigabit 1 IP address is 45.0.0.4 and 24. So start the configuration and modify the host name. This is R4. Okay, when we finished, we also can use the command to check the results. And next is the R5. Modify the host name. And then we have to create the loopback 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, but for this, we can see the R5 is not belongs to the OSPF. So now we don't need to create the management loopback interface. So we just to create the loopback 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So interface loopback 0 and the IP address. And next, interface loopback 1 IP address. And next, interface loopback 2. And then the IP address. And next, loopback 3. IP address. So now we configure the physical IP address, right? Interface gigabit 1. And the IP address is 45.0.0.5 and 24. So after this, we can check the results. And we can see the IP address is okay, right? And the physical IP address is okay. So after this, actually, we can do a simple verification here to test the street connection is okay. So we can go to the R2 device and to ping the R1. So it's successful, and ping R3. So it's also successful. And go to the R4 to ping the R3. And it's okay. And we can do ping R5. So it's also okay. It means all the physical IP address is okay. So after this, we will create the OSPF basic configuration from the R1. And for this topology, we can see the R1, R2, R3, R4 belongs to the OSPF, but R5 is not belongs to the OSPF. So when you configure the OSPF configuration, please be careful. So first is the R1 device, router OSPF1, and the network. And you can use to IP interface to see the network information here and help you to do the network 1.1.1, and the word mask is 0.0.0.0, and we network this interface to area 1. Okay, because we have 3 area. This is backbone area, and the 1, 2 is standard area. Okay, next. The network, the 192.168.0.1. The A1. So all the IP address, all the segment is belong to the area 1 because the R1 just has one area. Okay. And then to the network. A1. And then next loopback address. And for the physical IP address, A1. So after this, we have finished the OSPF configuration and WR. Go to R2. It's the same operation. So root OSPF 1, and of course you can set the root ID becomes the loopback 10. Okay, so now we do the network. For the 12 segment, we know here the R2 is the ABR device, belongs to the R1 and area 1 and area 0, right? So the interface for the 12 segment is belongs to the area 1, and the segment is 23 is belongs to the area 2. So be careful, here is network 12 to the area 1. And for the network 2.2, we add this segment to the area 0. And then the another segment is 23. We add it to the area 0. Okay, and now WR. Okay, we go to the R3. It's the same operation on every device. Network, and next network. And the last network. So we can see for R3 device, it belongs to the area 0 and the area 2. So for the gigabit 1, you have to network to the area 0. And for the gigabit 0, the segment is 34, right? It's 34. It belongs to the area 2. Okay. So after this, we finished the R3 configuration and WR. And then next is the R4. We go to R4 device and create the OSPF process in the network A2. Okay, it's the area 2. So we can see for the R4 device, the interface belongs to the area 2. And then net4 work for .4.4 A2. Okay, so now we have finished all the OSPF configuration here, and then WR to start the configuration. Okay, after this, we have to add the default route on R4 so that the R4 can learn the default route information from R5. So now, before we configure default route, we suggest you can show IP OSPF neighbor so that the OSPF built the neighbor relationship successfully. Show IP OSPF neighbor. And we can see the state is 4, and for R4, we have just one neighbor, right? And next is R3, show IP OSPF neighbor. And we can see we have two neighbor, is R2 and R4, right? And next, we can see the neighbor relationship on R2, show IP OSPF neighbor. Now for the R2, we can see we have two neighbor relationship, right? Okay, so after this, we go to the R1, show IP OSPF neighbor. Just the one. Okay, so all the OSPF configuration is correct. And then we will do the IP route. We will do the static route configuration. So on R4, the first route is the IP route to the 172.16.0.1 and the net mask. Okay, and then the next hop. So this is actually means we want to go to the 160, we want to go to the 172.16.0, this segment, and we have through the packet to the 45.0.0.5 this interface. Okay, next is the same. And next, so next hop, and the last. Okay, after this, we can check the IP route on our routing table. So we can see the static routing entries, right? Is 0 and 1 and 2 and 3. So it's correct. Okay, after this, we will do the redistribute on R4. Actually, the R4 has the static routing entry has the OSPF process. So now, if we want the static routing entries go to the OSPF process, we have to do the redistribute. So here is the root OSPF1 and redistribute the static subnets. It's the redistribute configuration. Okay, after this, we can see the IP root configuration we have finished. So before OSPF enter domain root summarization, the R4 roots routing table contains 4 detailed routes for the 192 network segments. So the 192 network segment is from the R1, right? It's from the R1. So we can check the routing table on every device. So here we use the show IP routing root OSPF just to see the OSPF routing entry, and we can see the 192.168.0 and .1, .2, .3, these 4 segments. So these routing entries details show in the routing table, right? Okay, so now we can see every detailed routing entry. After this, we can do the summarization. So now we will go to the R2 device. So the R2 device actually is the ABR device. And we do the summarization on ABR device. So router, before we do this, we can do the show IP root and see the detailed information here, right? Okay, and we do the summarization, root OSPF1. And area, it belongs to the area 1, right? And range, the 192 and .168.0.0. And then the summarization is okay for these 4 segments, and the routing table on R4 root after summary is showing like this. Okay, it's showing like this. So the detailed routes has been summarized into 22 segment OIA routes. So now we check it on our routers. Show IP route OSPF. Just use the OSPF route to find the router quickly. Okay. If you use the show IP route, you will see other routing entries not belongs to the OSPF, maybe the static. Okay, so you can see actually here is the routing entries. Here, right, is a 22 segment, and we can compare the detailed information between 2 routing entry. So before we do the summarization, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 detailed routing entry. But after we do the summarization, we can see just 1. Okay, and the segment is 22. Okay, so this is the summarization function. And the OSPF out of domain root summarization, the R1 routing table contains 4 detailed routes for the 172 network segments. So here we can see the segment on R1, show IP route. And we can see the detailed information here, right? Is the OE2, means the OSPF external type 2 routing entries. And the routing entry is 1, 2, 3, 4 detailed routing entry. But now we don't want to see so many routing entries, so we have to do the summarization. Okay, now we can do the summarization on R4 device, because the R4 actually is the ABR device for OSPF area. And then go to the R4 device. And into the OSPF configuration mode and do the summary address, the 72.16.0.0 and use the segment is 255.255.252.0. Okay, so this is the summarization on ASVR device. After this, we can check the results on R1. So it's a shoe IP root. And now we can see there is just one routing entry here is a OE2 and 172.16.0.0 and the net mask is 22, right? It's different from here. It's different from here, right? Here we have 4 detailed routing entry, but after we do the summarization, and we just have 1 routing entry, right? Okay, so this is the summarization function. So after this, actually we have finished this lab, and we can see the key points for this lab. First is the summarization of OSPF inter-domain routes can only be performed on the ABR router. So here we do the inter-domain routes summarization on R2 device, because in this topology we can see the ABR device belongs to the area 1 and the area 0, right? And we just do the summarization on R2 device. So the area in the summarization must be the area where the routes originate. So here we can see the routing entries actually is originate from the R1, right? Is originate from R1. So the R2 actually is the R1's ABR because 2 devices belongs to the area 1. Okay. And the second key point is the summarization of OSPF out-of-domain routes can only be performed on the ASVR router where external routes are redistributed. So for this topology, we can see the R4 actually is the ASVR device for whole OSPF. And the R4 device actually connected to the OSPF process, and on R4, we create the IP route, the static routing entry will create on the R4, right? So the ASVR is the R4 device, and we will do the summarization on R4. So the summarization of OSPF out-of-domain routes can only be performed on the ASVR router where external routes are redistributed. So we can see the OE2. Okay, we can see the OE2. So it means it's from the external. Okay, and the goal of the summarization is to redistribute exciting external routes. So we can see our routing table is very simple. And before we do the summarization, there are many detailed information in the routing table. But now, after we do the summarization, we just can see 1 routing entries for 4 detailed routing entries, right? So actually, it's a good operation for us to see the routing entries. Of course, it helps us to manage our device, and our device don't need to occupy much memory resources to store the detailed information. Okay, so this is the advantage for the summarization. Okay, this is the lab contents. So that's all for this class. Thank you for watching.